Today is August 19th, 2020, and I just got back from basically 4 days in New England. I flew from LAX to Boston and then drove to Burlington, Vermont, and then went into Massachusetts, Connecticut, back to Massachusetts, and out of Logan Airport. So everyone's been asking me, what was it like? What was it like to fly during COVID? How do I stay safe? How is it wearing a mask the whole time? Trying to eat or drink on the plane? Are you able to keep distant from people? So I came up with 8 points on not just how to fly during COVID, but also how to be comfortable and relaxed. Number 1, only fly airlines that keep the middle row free. And this one isn't so much about health purposes, but more about comfort. So when I flew out, I flew Delta. But coming back, Delta didn't have an airline flying at the time I wanted to come back, so I flew JetBlue. And so here's what it saves you money. If you're someone who just doesn't like to sit in the middle, this is great, and it saves you money because on both Delta and JetBlue, there's an extra $30 or something like that to choose a seat each way. That can add up. And I'm also a financially conscious traveler. I want to cut corners wherever I can. So here's a pro tip. So here's what you do. Set an alarm for 24 hours and 2 minutes before your plane is supposed to leave. And then on the app, check in. And then it'll give you a seat. And to give you an example, on the JetBlue going back, maybe there's 30 rows in total. I ended up getting a window seat in row 23. That's usually the jackpot for most to be able to sit against the window. Anyway, I wanted a aisle seat because I get up frequently to use the restroom, and I'll explain why in just a second. So I just figured I'll negotiate with the person that has the aisle seat because they probably didn't pay extra for it either. They probably just, did what I did and just got whatever seat was assigned to them. Most people will trade you an aisle seat for a window seat. So that was pretty easy to do. So right there, you've already saved money. And here's why it's so great that a third of the airplane is empty. You can use that middle seat underneath it to put your backpack or any items right there. And, obviously easy access for things that you want to use on the plane. Of course, I always recommend putting as much stuff as you can in the overhead compartment. And the great thing about it being 1/3 empty, you don't have to worry that even if you get on the plane late, that the overheads could be taken up. This actually takes out a lot of stress because you know that you're going to have space. Unintended consequences, you're not going to have a lot of people getting up to stretch as you normally would. Everything's cut by 1/3, and a lot of people just aren't getting up in general because of COVID. My flight was around 5.5, 6 hours, both coming and going, just very smooth, comfortable, non-stressful flights. So you might be asking me, okay, well, what about the fact that we have to wear masks in the plane, so we can't eat, we can't drink? So you can eat and you can drink on the plane. You just take off your mask while you're eating, then you just put it back on, or while you're drinking. But here's the thing. This is a benefit of not wanting to take your mask off to eat. Something that I've been doing for several years. I fast. Doesn't matter where I fly. Usually I'm going to Europe or something like that. But here's the reason why it's a benefit not to eat on a plane. Fasting helps with jet lag. Because of dehydration, cabin pressure, and lack of oxygen do wonders on your gut. I'm not saying not to drink. Definitely drink, and we'll go into that in a second. But don't eat. If you're afraid you can't go 6 hours without eating, do some trial runs beforehand. I've done intermittent fasting for years where 16 hours I don't eat, and then 8 hours is my time to eat. But because I practice the keto lifestyle, low carbs, high healthy fats and protein, I'm fat adapted, which means I don't get hungry. And even if I think I'm hungry, if I don't eat, I'm not going to be hungry. It's when you're eating carbohydrates, which turns into sugar, it's like a drug, it's like heroin, and it tells you you're still hungry. It tells your body, feed me more. Obviously, you don't have to go full keto, and there are some dangers if you don't do keto correctly in terms of what it can do to your liver and kidneys and things like that. Getting away from eating the unhealthy carbs, cereals, breads, pastas, things like that. Keeping your carbs low. And this will also, when you travel or just in general, bacteria and things like that, they need sugar to grow. And so they cannot, in a fat-adapted chemistry setup, in your body, it's very difficult for bad bacteria. You can look up the science. I'm not going to go and explain it. I'm just saying that you get sick less if you eat high healthy fats and very low carb diets, protein somewhere in the middle, and intermittent fasting. And so I want to back up a little bit. Before you fly, here's a couple things to keep in mind. Because you're going to be wearing a mask for that 6 hours or however long you're flying, or just in general, you want to get anti-microbial. These are the ones that say silver in them. These are self-sanitizing masks. And this keeps from the breaking down of your fabric, from discolorization, from odors, So I bought antimicrobial masks. I'll put all the things I'm talking about in the comments below. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, unless you want to sponsor me. And I've been flying with masks since 2016 when I went to Japan and everyone was wearing masks. But if you're someone who's you're really concerned sometimes when you're waiting in line, I'm not talking about on the plane per se, just when you're going through the airport and you're in the security line and there's no way, there's 6 feet between you and the next person, you can buy online face shields, but it just makes you feel more comfortable because I noticed when I was waiting to get on the plane, people were sitting with their mask below their nose. For those of you that don't know, there's 3 ways in which you can get the coronavirus: your mouth, your nose, and your eyes. And if you get a comfortable face shield, you can wear it on the plane the whole time. So next point, whenever I was mentioning why I sit in the aisle, that's because I drink a lot of water. The rule of thumb is 8 ounces of water per hour that you're up in the air. When you do hydrate, you're going to feel much better when you land. And again, that's going to help you with jet lag. Okay, and here's the thing about the water, because I only drink filtered water or bottled water. I just don't drink tap water. So if you buy a bottle of water at the airport, it could cost you like $5. But in major airports, and most airports have this now, is a special water fill-up station where the water's been filtered. So this can save you a lot of money. Oh, by the way, so it was pretty easy for me to get the person to switch the aisle for the window seat because I said, would you be willing to switch? Because I get up very frequently to use the restroom. And that's the last thing someone wants on a 6-hour flight is somebody getting up and climbing over them what might be every 10 minutes. Like I said, for years I've been fasting on my flights and wearing a mask. So this wasn't any big deal for me. This was actually easier because there's more space. The other thing is people weren't looking at me like I had 2 heads. So here's another tip. And this is something I heard on the radio the other day, one of the podcasts I listened to. People are still flying, but a lot of people are not booking first class or business class because a lot of businesses aren't flying right now. What used to happen is all the airlines were used to businesses booking last-minute flights because business trips just pop up out of the blue. So now that you don't have that happening, there's a lot more seats available in first class and business. I mean, just for fun, you can check it out. You can pretend like you're booking for the next day or even later in the day and just see how much the charge is to do it last minute. And here's a key thing. I'm assuming that you're most likely going to get a rental car when you get to your destination. So make sure that whatever rental car company that is, you join their preferred customer list. This doesn't cost anything. I did with budget. It was called a fast break. And so what fast break does is they already have your car waiting for you when you get there. So you don't have to wait in line to get your car. Here's another pro tip. When I got to Logan Airport at the fast break, they did not have my name there. I'm like, oh my gosh, because there's very little people at the airport that work at the airport and work in these rental car places because of COVID. They're cutting back. They want as few people as possible having contact with anybody. So a lot of these airports are pretty barren and difficult to get help. And if the number I called, it took me to somebody probably in New Delhi. And of course, all they could do was try to call the place where I was at, where no one was picking up. What was seeming like it was going to turn into a 2-hour nightmare to wait in line just to explain that they'd made a mistake or they didn't put my fast break information out. If you're in that situation, here's what I did. So Avis owns Budget. And so they had a line, Avis preferred guests. I just got in that line where there's only one person ahead of me. Within minutes, I was up there and the guy said, oh yes, we have your information here. So that is the biggest thing. And there's a place called Autostash, free to join, and you're looking for the best price rent cars. It pulls them from a lot of different places. It's like an Expedia type thing in terms of pulling the best rates, car rentals from all over the place. But I ended up going with Costco Travel, which gave me a 30% discount. Make sure you download all your apps wherever you're going because right now everything is contactless. And speaking about rental cars, the biggest cost besides the daily rental is going to be your gas. There's a thing called Gas Buddy. It's a card you can get. And Gas Buddy also has an app that tells you the least price gas stations closest to wherever you are. The great thing about the Gas Buddy is if you're planning your trip, you know where you're going to drive, look at where the best prices are in gas before you even set up your drive. That'll save you a few bucks there. Always looking at how we can not just travel comfortably, but also do it on the cheap if possible. And then also places like New England, there's a lot of toll booths, and I was not aware of this, and I paid $12 a day to Budget to get one of those transponder things on the car so that you don't have to stop and pay at any of these toll booths. I mean, it sounded like a good deal. There was only between Boston and Burlington, Vermont, there was only one toll and it was for $1. So I ended up losing money on this deal. That's why you want to do your research beforehand on tolls. I mean, whether you're in America or in Europe. As a sales recruiter, I've placed people with like Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and they're trained to 3 times come at you and try to get you to buy the damage waiver insurance, which you really don't need if you have a travel card. A lot of credit cards for traveling have that built in where it protects you if you rent the car with that credit card. Oh, and something I forgot. One of the things I found out with Delta, if you get the Delta credit card, your first check bag is free. So it would have been $30 to pay. So I mean, that's, save $30 right there. JetBlue offered me one as well, but I took the Delta one, just doing one at a time, because to get the best bang for your buck with those cards, you have like 2 or 3 months to spend $1,000 or $2,000 on them. I don't want to go too much into this, and that's to get your points and get bonuses and things like that. All I do is whenever I get a new credit card, I move over all my utilities and everything that was being paid on my other credit card, and I move it over to that one. And once I've spent the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, to get my max points, then I'll go to another credit card, or I'll put it into my credit card that already gets me the most points. I hope this was helpful. Please comment and give me your feedback. I'd like to hear if you've traveled during COVID and what you've dealt with, what your tips are that we can share with other people. And if you like this video, please click like and please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. You can send me an email to Andy@askandyanything.info. Thank you.